The last hours of pregnant teen killer death row inmate before execution. For 18 agonizing years, I somehow survived the horrors of relentless torture. My existence resembled that of a death row inmate as I was confined within the heartless walls of Tech Confinement. Human dignity was a concept completely disregarded, and I suffered under a system that pushed me to the edge of my sanity. Solitary confinement became my agonizing reality, stripping away my will to live and witnessing my gradual deterioration. The root of my troubled life began on August 14th, 1970 in Los Angeles, California, where poverty and segregation marked my upbringing in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It was within the confines of this harsh environment that I tragically witnessed my father's unrelenting abuse of my mother, causing deep scars that no child should bear. The turning point came during a drug deal gone awry. Rachel Tovar and her husband Jose were drug dealers operating in Houston, Texas, providing narcotics to various individuals, including my associates from Tuscaloosa and myself. On June 19, 1992, accompanied by Marion Dudley, Antonio Dunson, and Maliak Travis, I embarked on a journey to Houston. Arriving at my sister Grace's residence on June 20th, we initially intended to purchase cocaine. However, consumed by greed, we made the fateful decision to rob them instead. This decision led to a gruesome act of binding and shooting 6 individuals within the house. When the authorities arrived, 3 lives had already been extinguished, and another victim succumbed to their injuries later, bringing the death toll to 4. The surviving victims identified Marion Dudley, Arthur Brown Jr., and Tony Dunson as the perpetrators. As suspicion mounted and the police intensified their search, we made a desperate escape. Procuring a Jeep Cherokee, we convinced 2 women to drive us from Birmingham, Alabama to Louisville, Kentucky. Assuming false identities, we secured plane tickets to Ohio. On July 8, 1992, authorities apprehended Dudley and Dunson at a mobile home in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Subsequently, I was captured by the Tuscaloosa County Metro Homicide Unit at an apartment in North Point, Alabama. Throughout the trial, my sisters Sarisa, Grace, and Carolyn testified as witnesses for the state. However, their testimonies were marred by allegations of coercion and threats by the police and prosecutors, compromising their credibility. Carolyn, who initially invoked the Fifth Amendment, faced contempt charges and even a brief incarceration. Despite eventually testifying, she was convicted of perjury. In November 1993, I was found guilty of capital slang, leading to a death sentence. Marion Dudley also received a death sentence, while Antonio Dunson was sentenced to life imprisonment. On July 25, 2006, Dudley met his fate through lethal injection in Huntsville, Texas. Proclaiming innocence until his last breath, he had to be carried to the execution chamber, refusing to walk. When given an opportunity for a final statement, he remained silent, prompting the administration of lethal drugs. 8 minutes later, at 6:16 p.m., he was declared lifeless. In contrast, my fight for justice continues. Over the years, I've tirelessly pursued appeals, seeking to overturn my conviction. However, my attempts have been met with repeated rejections. In August 2014, a federal court appeal requesting funds for a mitigation specialist to aid my clemency petition was denied. Subsequent appeals in October 2017 and beyond faced similar outcomes. Nonetheless, my newly appointed attorneys persist in their fight, citing false evidence in the recent discovery of suppressed exculpatory evidence that points to the involvement of others in the slaying. While I may have received a temporary reprieve from the looming gallows, the threat of execution still looms overhead, casting a shadow of uncertainty over my life. Despite the imminent execution date, a staunch opposition remains steadfast in their belief that I am the victim of a wrongful conviction. They argue that false evidence tainted my guilty verdict and highlight my intellectual impairments, possibly stemming from fetal alcohol disorder, which make me vulnerable to such a grave miscarriage of justice. Furthermore, they emphasize the absence of mitigating evidence during my trial, including the harrowing hardships endured during my impoverished and abusive childhood. As the threat of execution looms, a steadfast opposition believes in my wrongful conviction. With the recent discovery of suppressed evidence and the ongoing battle for truth, the fight for justice remains relentless. This is a story that sheds light on the flaws of the system and the enduring strength to prove innocence.